Good morning, Nick G. I'm a dude on the couch. I woke up, and so I'm starting to look through my stuff. I work nights, so Tuesday's kind of a throwaway day. So my Tuesday evening is basically me catching up. You know what I'm saying, on the hype, on the news cycle, because I sleep throughout Tuesday. Um, so the big hype was James Talarico showing up on Colbert. FCC will not let you see this man be interviewed. Oh. And then, so after seeing it, I watched the interview. Don't care. James Talarico is not my guy. I personally have, for all the things he says right, he is 100% a red flag on the play for this dude. So I'll get into that. But so I finally watched the interview. I won't click on a CBS link, so I watched it through Keith Edwards, I think. Anyway, I watched the clip. I heard a lot of God. I heard a lot of Jesus. I heard a lot of Bible. I did not hear a lot of U.S. Constitution. I did not hear a lot of my citizen rights as an American citizen. I heard God's will. I heard God's intent, that kind of stuff. If somebody is born, I'll use the South as an example. We're talking about Texas, it's the South. But when somebody's born into a faith culture, a lot of times what is you're raised in it. But when you run into somebody who is a born again, they've gone through a life experience and decided they were going to suspend belief to hang it up on this organized structure, this organized path, which, hey, I can pull from it greatly. I also can pull from Dragon Ball Z. I also can pull from episodes of Malcolm in the Middle. You know what I'm saying? If you understand philosophy and faith, then you understand how to read a situation. You understand that all communications is not direct. When I'm listening to an evangelical like James Talarico, there is no subtlety. There is no kinda. It is very direct. The very direct verbiage that he uses is very direct to give an internal, to give an implication of virtue, to give an implication. If I say Jesus, boom, we're all looking at Robe Daddy up on the wall. When I talk about Jesus, boom, we're flipping tables. You dig what I'm saying? When I talk about Jesus, I'm pulling out fish. But does anybody know? Not everybody's pulled out the John Fugel saying, separation of church and hate, to know the difference. It's just, you see Jesus, iconography. You get the same thing when you see the symbol for the Mandalorian. Dig what I'm saying? You dig what I'm saying? It's implied virtue. I see. All right, so that's my James Talarico. The FCC, by blocking James Talarico, what they did was they drew attention to a white man who can't get the Bible out of his mouth over an educated black woman who says everything right. Let me go back to James Talarico. James Talarico is going to be the guy who's going to explain to the American people why we have to stand by Israel. James Talarico is the guy who's going to be on TV news shows explaining to us the hard stuff. Well, it's a hard choice, but we had to do it. It's, if you knew what I know. James Talarico is a dark horse. When I mean dark horse, I mean a dark horse. I mean a Trojan horse that's being inserted into the Democratic Party. I am not talking about Fetterman or Sinema or Manchin. I'm talking about James Talarico. As I said it, James Talarico is where Republicans are going to go when the Epstein ick contaminates their party for them. James Talarico is where they're going to go. I want somebody who's going to open up the book and tell me about John, who's going to tell me about Paul. I don't think Ringo or George get their own chapters, but they're going to want to hear about biblical shit, biblical names. They don't even need to know the content. They just want beep, beep, boop, buzzwords dropped. And that's how they're going to vote. And that's it. That's just how they're going to vote. James Talarico, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm going to explain this to you. What happened was the day before they started early voting, they made a big deal about James Talarico. James Talarico's name is on headlines. And then our hero, my hero, Stephen Colbert, he just comes up into this joint. I'm going to interview this guy. They want to hold us down. We're going to elevate their chosen babyface. Hold on. I'm going to talk to y'all real quick. Woo! Because Lisa, MS, I be talking to y'all all the time and commenting on all y'all stuff. And I hear you. Do you hear me? That's about the only George W. Bush quote you're ever going to get out of me, y'all. Nothing but love for y'all. Anyway, James Talarico is a Trojan horse. He's going to get in. He is going to be, oh, look, we had this blue tsunami headline, blue tsunami. And we're going to have a guy in the well of the House, in the Senate, well of the Senate, who's going to be dropping more words out of the Bible. You know what I'm saying? We don't need that. We have a document that is called the United States Constitution. What preceded it was the Declaration of Independence, which has one of my favorite phrases, which is natural law. Bro, that's physics. Bro, that's climate science. You know what I'm saying? And here we are talking about biblical law in Israel, as Mike Huckabee is promising us. You know what I'm saying? Here we are to serve Israel, this non-existent place that didn't exist. Palestine had lasted so much longer. Palestine was in I'm drawing a blank because my flywheel's spinning, but Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. You know what I'm saying? Was Israel? The Bible says so. But the Bible also says that Israel is not dirt. Israel is the land that holds the people who believe in God. Of the Christian Bible, of the Hebrew Bible, Torah. You know what I'm saying? So here we are with James Talarico. And my absolute favorite, bro, I hopped on to Allison Gill's Beans Talk this morning. And I went the fuck off on Allison Gill, one of my favorites. Like when I say one of my favorites, she's one of my people who I will never meet. Intentionally, I will never meet because I revere her so greatly. And I do not want a Geordie LaForge, Leah Brahms situation to come up where I meet her. And I'm like, who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is this? And have her meet me and be like, who the fuck is this? I'm Nick G. I'm a dude on the couch. But I listened to her and Dana Goldberg go off about how great Colbert was for putting on James Talarico. It could have been Jasmine Crockett, but this time it was James Talarico. No. The Trump administration chose to make headlines with James Talarico and Stephen Colbert. And they gave Stephen Colbert the person that they want to elevate. Do you know what I'm saying? In WWE, you have the people who are fighting for their championship. And you have a bad guy who defies everything. Shit, dude. I'll even talk about the bloodline, the Samoan bloodline, Roman Reigns, In the last couple years, WWE has done one of the most phenomenal storytelling jobs with Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. One dude with the wise man Paul Heyman at his side, and then the Usos. And right now, you can't go 30 or 40 minutes on a WWE product without seeing a Samoan. You know what I'm saying? So why am I bringing up the Bloodline? Because Roman Reigns, you would have the person who is definitely the next person in line for the title. And then he'd send his cousins, the Usos, to beat the poo out of him because he's not facing Sami Zayn. He's not facing Kevin Owens. No. He's chosen who he's facing. He's facing CM Punk because he's old, because his dog just died, because he's missing his wife. I'm going to beat this downtrodden dude who is so easy to beat. He's your champion. He is not your champion. I'm going to show you why he's a piece of shit. Donald Trump for Texas chose James Talarico to be the Bible-thumping candidate for the Democratic seat, for the Democratic candidacy, for the Texas seat in the state. No, not the state. Let me start over. Donald Trump chose James Talarico to be the choice for senator of the United States Senate for Texas to run against their person, whoever. They just know they did not want the intelligent black woman who was already doing a job representing the people in Washington. And they chose that they want a white man who's going to say the Bible and send him to Washington, which they won't send him to Washington because they're going to push their guy. James Talarico has no business being elevated on a national stage. In Texas, you have God, you have Texas, the state, and you have football. And I'm just saying, football and the state itself may not be in the same order. We've been played. We're getting played. We're still being played. If y'all look, and I kind of find my niche, if y'all look at some of the stuff that I'm writing, it's critical of the media. Nah. Jasmine Crockett is kind of like, she's her own product. If you ever want to see me get fiery, she is one of many. She is highly impressive, highly intelligent, amazing of an individual. She's accomplished. She's driven. We act like there aren't other black women like that. And I'm saying it about blackness because it's about awareness. We give. Let me kind of sidestep. And I'm going to get into this. I was watching a crooked video with Eamon Mohadeen, Tommy Vitor, Eamon Mohadeen. Tommy Vitor leads in that Crooked Media and MSNBC now have a partnership. So you're going to start seeing Crooked Media on MSNBC and vice versa. Excuse me. So that's one. The Bulwark and MSNBC, MS Now, my bad. The Bulwark and MS Now have been doing this the whole time because Tim Miller, facts. MS, that is facts. Tim Miller and Katie Turd, the gaggiest person on MS Now, have a partnership. They exchange program. I see her on her shit. I see him on her shit. MS Now, formerly MSNBC, CNN, I'm not going to acknowledge the other stuff because us progressives, that's all we talk about is the manipulation. But then we talk about how much we love Nicole, how much we love, whatever name brand host on Channel X. Now, I watch Angela Rye, she shows up, on Native Land Pod. She shows up on CNN. Tiffany Cross is one of my fans favorites. She shows up on CNN, and all that stuff. But CNN and MS Now are election interference. They give the illusion of having a home for progressives, and then they show you very white centric news. I think about boop, when I turn on 4 o'clock and I'm watching Nicole. Hi, good morning, everybody. This is us. We're here with our friends. We're all this. And then the rest of the show, oh my God. That's an actual quote for however many hours. Ah! And then they have guests and they explain these things. Now, see, this is why I call it election interference. MS Now people, they watch Bulwark Product, they watch CNN clips. That's what everybody watch. We don't watch actual shows. We don't appointment TV, you know what I'm saying, and sit down for, Leave It to Beaver. But we watch clips. We cycle through clips. I'm even going to pull Mayday Network into this because they're kind of in the peripheral of the mainstream where I'm like, God, I have hope for y'all, but come on. They watch clips from MSNBC, MS Now. They watch clips from CNN. They watch clips from Crooked. They watch clips from The Bulwark. So we gain our iconography with our Sam Stein. Hi, Sam Stein here. Our Tim Miller with his beans picture that I actually personally want that in my home now. Sarah, oh my God, I would love to spend time with Sarah Longwell. But she frustrates me because I hear this person as a matter of fact, I have a specific person in my head that she reminds me of. So who I was very close friends with in high school. I was the weirdo. I always drew weirdos. Sarah Longwell, she would have been in my pool. And so Sarah Longwell is an identity. I get you. But is the most frustrating thing listening to specifically her, because to me, she is the light of beacon for the Bulwark. But she is so naive. She literally is a Republican because she believed the shit she sees on TV. And when it's actually kind of been her latest gimmick, is everybody's like, Sarah, you're so naive. And she's saying, no, I'm not. I want to believe in a world where blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool. I'm watching black people. I watch Roland S. Martin on Black Star Network. I watch Karen Hunter every day. I watch the Reed Daniel Favors every day. I'm listening and going back to the Black Star Network, very, very serious, very, very intelligent black people speaking on a beat. Lisa, that's hard. Is she a Republican? She's a Republican in the sense that how somebody votes. Let me start this. We are one. Me. I am one citizen in the United States. Sarah Longwell is one. She is one citizen in the United States. Her worldview, as she has explained it and, through content, is small government, conservative as the narrative that was projected until Donald Trump. She was a Republican. Her entire Longwell group was to do to investigate how to get Republicans put into office. I mean, she wasn't like the Heritage Foundation. She genuinely believed in the kayfabe. She was a Republican version of the Hulkamaniac. You know what I'm saying? Me, huge wrestling fan, born in 77. I'm as old as Star Wars. I'm as old as Elvis is dead. I was a Hulkamaniac growing up. Huge Hulkamaniac growing up. But I knew, I think I was like maybe 10, 11. WWE used to come to the Glens Falls Civic Center. It's right over there. Glens Falls Civic Center is one of the most amazing places to me for early wrestling because Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes from my area. The Glens Falls Civic Center is where we saw all the wrestlers growing up. Randy Savage, when we watched, yes, the kayfabe. MSI. What I believe in is core republicanism. I say that growing up fully fucking progressive. I grew up Calypso Log. I grew up with Jane Goodall in my house. I grew up with hippies. We listened to Dylan, Donovan, Buffalo Springfield. We were hippies. But as I'm old, I there's the United States Constitution, and then there's lobbying firms who speak for the American citizens. The parties are middle management. And what do you know with middle management? They got their own interests. They aren't worried about your job. They aren't worried about your pay. They aren't worried about your responsibilities. They're worried about elevating themselves. And that's the parties, the middle management. Um, um, I just kind of got wild. Me, myself, I'm Republican. I believe in get your hands off. I believe in small government. I do not believe in foreign intervention unless it's absolutely necessary. You know what I'm saying? I believe in freedom of religion. And you know, it's funny for me because I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in it. Just like I just told you that political parties are basically lobbying firms. It's the same thing with religion, except for we look to them like a parent. You know what I'm saying? And that's not who it's a dupe. Which brings me full circle. So is James Talarico. It's a dupe, bro. If you ever watched, yeah, who's an 80s kid? I'm an 80s kid. I grew up in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? There was a movie called The Pickup Artist. And you know, one of the coolest things, and I'm going to end up writing about it because one day I'm going to get tired writing about the media. We don't watch the progress of communication through our popular culture. You think about what was dark wave. Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. The whole Brat Pack, dude. Lisa, the whole Brat Pack are exactly what I'm talking about. They were the gamut. They were the gamut of everybody who we saw in their movies. What they did in their real life was their own joint. You know what I'm saying? But what we saw in those movies was the gamut of people. Going back to music, you know, you had in the 40s and 50s, our music was very contained, and then rock and roll got a little bit wild, so we started getting a little wild. Mind you, I'm speaking the white Americana, the Americana culture, not American culture. American culture has black people, has brown people, has immigrants and stuff like that. Americana does not. So Americana, when I'm speaking that, I'm talking about ka-ting, the cash register sold this. People got eyeballs, ratings, and funding for this. So you had the 40s, and the 40s was very much off. We're trying to bring people into love. We're trying to let people feel something. They're trying to get away from the horrors that we just left world wars. We just had poverty and the depression and stuff like that. And so we just want people to feel good. And so they give you your good. Then you have the 50s. The 50s is very much Finding My Baby. Now that in 2026, we know that most of the music that we grew up on was old men raping young women. Um, Man, I don't listen to a lot of Elvis anymore. A lot of, what's his name? Lou Christie. Oh, lightning strikes. Bro. Lisa. No. Of course there were no black people in the Brat Pack, bro. Because it was suburban. It was white. It was America. Hey, even thinking about that, you know, I always use Greece. You know, it occurred in Southern California. I always use Greece as my example. You think that they were white in the 50s and 60s, man? They weren't white in the 50s and 60s. They were afraid to be Latin. They were afraid to be Italian. They were afraid to be whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so the one drop doctrine is still very true in the United States. And at that point, they just didn't talk about that drop. And so when they did the show Rise of the Pink Ladies, I don't know if y'all seen it, the songs weren't nearly as memorable. But the cool thing about Rise of the Pink Ladies, which gives the storyline building up into the, Grease, you find out that they were Latin. They were this, but being Italian was more acceptable. You know what I'm saying? Southern California, there are not that many white people there. I lived there, and you're not going anywhere without seeing an Aztec calendar. That's just me. I got way lost. Um, Music. You go into the '70s and, they're bucking the suits. They wanna walk their own path. So they go, they get their guitar, we're a whole bunch of folkies, we're a whole bunch of just I think about, the Merry Pranksters and stuff like that, Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters. I was sort of leading with 2 books. Jack Kerouac on the Road is about, Sal and Dean, right? The sequel to On the Road is The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by Michael Wolff? Anyway, Thomas Wolfe. So you have, um, On the Road by Jack Kerouac, and then you have The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. The truth is, this is early Dean Moriarty, and this is late Dean Moriarty under his real name. His last name's Cassidy, I'm drawing a blank. But it's a two-part series. You can't just read one and have it be separate, you know what I'm saying, then read the other. You have to read Jack Kerouac on the Road, and then you have to read The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test after. That's the way the story goes. Um, Boy, did I get distracted. The '70s led into because you had Martin Luther King. You had the acceptance, you know what I'm saying? And people talk about it was the peaceful protests that led to, people having civil rights. No, it was the Black Panthers starting to arm themselves. And, now we see modern Black Panther, which there are very much court cases going on right now. Are they of the original Black Panthers? The original Black Panthers, Huey P. Newton, I feel like it's like his daughter or something like that is suing the current connotation of the Black Panthers for, rights or whatever. But people kept bugging the Black Panthers. How can I get in? How can I get in? And it was actually them joining up, I believe, with American Jewish people. And then the Black Panther Party became the Rainbow Coalition, which became the Rainbow Push Coalition, which brings us into Jesse Jackson, R.I.P. This young person as a Black man coming from MLK, running for office twice. Yeah, 84, 88. Oh, Lisa, thank you very much. You have a great day at work, dude. um, all of this, we don't. I know growing up, Jesse Jackson was a gimmick. You know what I'm saying? He was a gimmick. He was the Black dude. I grew up watching white people. I grew up in upstate New York. Everybody's white. We grew up listening to classic rock. If it wasn't Pix 106, you didn't hear it. If it was pop music, I'd have to wait till the grown folks went away to put on my own tunes. But I think about it in like '85. I was listening to Blondie because it's on the classic rock. I didn't realize that was still new music. You know what I'm saying? Blondie, The Cars. Give me somebody. Who else? Elvis Costello. That was all new music in the early '80s, but I'm listening to the classic rock station. And as a kid, I thought it was weird. So into the '80s, you start getting into your dark wave. And what is dark wave starting to do? You start shaking all the, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I don't want to be stuck at a company for 50 years. You know what I'm saying? I think about that one lyric, I just want to be loved. Bro, that one line sums up what dark wave is in comparison to traditional composition of music that we grew up into. Dark wave was very important. Dark wave coming from England. Bro, do you realize how many people they have stacked on each other in a small jaunt of land? Like it's when I start talking about British population and compared to American population, superimposing the map over the map, where does this meet up? We're impressive in the sense that where England is a lot of people in one space, there's a lot of people in Chicago, there's a lot of people in New York, there's a lot of people in Dallas. You dig what I'm saying? We talk about the United States as if it's the United States, like it's one body. This is my head, this is my arm, this is my chest. The United States. No, we got 50 Englands up in this bitch. Some Englands are Micronesia. You dig what I'm saying? They don't have the economics, they don't have the population, they have dirt. That's the culture that we're in. So when we have, going back to James Talarico, when we have Crooked, when we have The Bulwark, when we have MS Now, when we have CNN elevating this man, James Talarico, as this one headline the day before early voting starts. You know what I'm saying? They aren't making the click. We won. Stephen Colbert is so awesome. The FCC can go fuck itself. They played into their hands. Dude, we have been doing this for 10 years. Donald Trump served fries at a closed McDonald's. Donald Trump went around in a garbage truck and did garbage truck things. And he got elected president. When are we going to stop listening? This is an ear over here. When are we going to stop listening to MS Now, CNN, Crooked, The Bulwark, while they're part of the op? Part of the op. I'm a wrestling head. And I always, oh my God, this is so, like even listening to the Epstein files. It's like you have the Epstein files. But because wrestling is a contained environment, you have the Vince McMahon files too. And there's a whole court case. And it talks about Johnny Ace and Brock Lesnar and dildos named Andre the Giant and Vince McMahon writing to people who work for him saying that they'd like to see them take a big black dick. You know what I'm saying? But let's talk about the Epstein files. The one connection in the Epstein files, total side quest, I got hyped. The one connection to the Epstein files that fascinates me, obviously I'm fascinated because I grew up in the Stanton Friedman School of lone gunman conspiracy, where I do not trust the government. The government is the bad guy. The government is doing nefarious things. And I am the Fox Mulder in 2025 being, bitch, I told you. But the conspiracies go further back. When I'm thinking about what really gets me being a wrestling fan, there's a woman named Ashley Massaro. She's from, I feel like New York, New Jersey. I could do research, but why? She's from the New York City area. And her name comes up. And I'll get into, now, let me preface. In WWE, Ashley Massaro was a tragic individual where they did an overseas tour. She was raped as an employee of the WWE. She was raped overseas by our military members. Okay. And it got shoved under the carpet. That's one. So that's past this prologue. I don't know. But Ashley Massaro. So the Epstein files. She gets named in the Epstein files where somebody says, now mind you, she's from the New York, New Jersey area. She was involved in Miss Hawaiian Tropic competitions, modeling competitions. And the connection to that, to the Epstein files, is Vince McMahon in the early 80s. I'm going to use, her name is Molly Holly. Her real name is like Nora Ringwald words. Anyway, she wrestled as Molly Holly. phenomenal in the, late '90s, early 2000s. She was an incredible technical wrestler. She was awesome. She ended up being Mighty Molly and working with Crash Holly and, Hardcore Holly. That was when the hardcore scene was the shit. And, so she was great. She was thicker. She had a thick bottom and thicker legs and a more stout build. And at that time, Vince McMahon was getting his women from Miss Hawaiian Tropic competitions, from, people who would do cosplay and stuff like that, at signings. One second. And so that's where I get my tie-in. I have not gone in and searched up Vince McMahon like somebody with my knowledge base proper should. But eh, we got enough. So Ashley Mazzaro, she comes up. She's named. She's named not directly, but as somebody who was calling in and name drops Ashley Mazzaro. She was known to have worked for Ghislaine Maxwell as this statement. She got pregnant in high school as this statement. That is in effect for anybody else that wants to go on and say other things. That's the nutshell of Ashley Mazzaro. Side quest. There's a wrestler right now named Liv Morgan. Her name's Giada something. And she is very, very much her own entity. But when she came in, also from New Jersey, she came in and I used to make the joke that she came in and used Ashley Mazzaro's gimmick when she first came into WWE and NXT. And that's kind of a big deal. Because for those who don't know what NXT is kind of like a finishing school for developing a character, developing skills. Once the WWE in Orlando has this performance center. When you go to play football and stuff like that, how they have the centers where they do the drills, and then they got the medical facility. Same thing for basketball, same thing for anything. WWE did that also. This was actually the dream of Paul Levesque, who is actually the head of talent relations right now in WWE, formerly known as Triple H, culturally known as Triple H. But it was his idea way back. So lineage is everything to me. Back in the days in WCW, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash used to roll around with Paul Levesque. And they rolled with him because he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't party, and he had a soul solid mind on the business. At the time, his name was Terrorizing. And then he became one of the Blue Bloods, Hunter, Hurst, Helmsley. And he was, your basic snobby, arrogant guy from Greenwich, Connecticut. And then he became the cerebral assassin. He became the Game. He became unstoppable. And then he married Stephanie McMahon, both in the show and in real life, which their relationship developed from the show. and then he ended up getting the gig. He was the heir apparent to the McMahon legacy. Phenomenal. Of course, what did they do? They ended up selling out to TKO. Right now, the product is fucking trash. The big dollar seats that used to be $160 are now $400, $500. So that's why nobody's going. Who's going? Foreign nationals, like in Riyadh, because they can afford seats. We can't. That's why AEW is the place to go. Hashtag Gerald Briscoe. Hashtag fuck ice. Hashtag MJF. Wait, I said Gerald Briscoe. I didn't mean Gerald Briscoe. Gerald Briscoe, I believe, is their dad. Anyway, the Briscoe brothers. They're the shit. Actually, one of them died. Whew. Boy, did I get spun out. I was talking about James Talarico. James Talarico, Bible guy, not a Constitution guy. He uses constitutional words to decorate his Bible. I wonder if he knows Lee Atwood. Stephen Colbert was duped. Yes, he went forward with it. He got played. We're fucking with con men, dude. We're fucking with con men. Every woman you see on the TV from the Republican Party is a honeypot. You know, motherfuckers be clicking on and going, I'd hit it. Because you don't see the ugly ones showing up. Same thing with the dudes. They're clean cut. They're well dressed. They're talking manly. They're all trying to be the stud. They're all trying to be the lover boy. Isn't that the two? The honeypot and the lover boy? We're being kind. So my morning wake up was listening to all these videos. Stephen Colbert won. The American people won. You can't keep us down. But we're not being kept down, man. We're being clowned. James Talarico doesn't need to be elevated. He needs to run a campaign in Texas, the Lone Star State. I don't need to hear somebody like Sarah Longwell. I don't need to hear somebody like Tommy Vitor telling me about a Texas candidate. You know what I'm saying? He don't have my values at all. Jasmine Crockett has my values to a point. To a point. I'm not from Texas. My values, as my experience, as I read, as I live my life, as I trial and error. You know, there's a Confucius quote that I am not going to speak word for word, but it basically comes down to when traveling with two other people, you always have teachers. You are always going to be watching somebody have success. You are always going to be watching somebody make mistakes that you can learn from. And those two people can learn from you. When traveling in groups of 3, you always have teachers. Dig it? We aren't teaching. We aren't teaching. Now, I rattled off the bulwark, all former Republican who voted Republican, who bought the TV version of the Republican, and that's why they go on there all the time. Well, Democrats need to do this. Show me a Democrat. Show me. Now, why do I say I can see a Republican? Because they buy the outfits, they buy the gimmicks. I grew up in the wrestling community, cradle to grave. I watched children with their John Cena wristbands, their Dr. Thugonomic chains on their chest, grow up to take their little children with their You Can't See Me wristbands and their Hustle, Loyalty, Respect t-shirts to go see John Cena's retirement match. You know what I'm saying? Cradle to grave. So what we ended up doing with the James Talarico thing, and I haven't shut up specifically about this for easily 12 hours. I slept. But we're being duped. We're being conned. We're being given the illusion of choice, but then we aren't given a choice. You know what I'm saying? We aren't given a choice. We think we're given a choice, but we're reacting. Not a single thing that I watched today. Did anybody critically think about it? Did anybody explain something? Did anybody say, hey, we seen this before. We do it all the time. We keep celebrating this whatever that's thrown in front of us. My avatar thing. They just keep dropping the cabbage card. My cabbages. And that's us. We're just expressing the audacity of cabbages all the time. I'm going to the bull. I guess I really hate Republican product. When I say Republican, I mean it's not real. It's a kayfabe. Even their definition of the Democrat is false. I'm a Star Trek head. I have very focused franchises that I geek out for. There's an episode where Q comes on to the promenade. Nope, he's in Quark's bar in Deep Space Nine, and he brings on fisticuffs, Queensberry rules, and Ben Sisko just a boop, pops dude in the nose. You weren't supposed to just hit me. The card wouldn't have just hit me. That's what we're doing. We keep being given a very small window of reaction, of doing, but we aren't doing it. You know what I'm saying? We aren't doing our greater responsibility. We're doing the thing we're expected to, or rebelling against the thing that we are expected to do because we don't want to. Child psychology, dog. Rabbit season, duck season, well, rabbit season, duck season, duck season, rabbit season. We're getting conned. We're getting conned by the people who are there to inform us. Nobody should be watching MS now. Nobody. If you want to be slightly smarter than a comedy show, The Daily Show, watch MS now. Watch CNN. I'm disappointed in Allison Gill, the Daily Beans, today because she's celebrating the win. I'm curious because I am watching. All of the polling is behind Jasmine Crockett. All of the numbers for her as a candidate was behind Jasmine Crockett. Early voting started, and they put James Talarico's name in everybody's mouth. They made Fetch happen. So I'm waiting to see if Fetch gets the vote or if Fetch does not get the vote. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm getting windy. And when I start getting windy, I feel like I'm just sitting in front of my laptop talking, which I do when I don't press record anyway. So I'm going to dip out. I'm Nick G. I'm a dude on the couch. If you plant me, I grow. If you're going to believe in someone, why not believe in me?